This video will share my journey, which you can replicate to eventually achieve full knowledge and conversation with the Holy Guardian Angel, the HGA for short. I have no doubt that the Abramelin was the system that not only provided the fastest and most obvious thaumaturgical results in my practice, meaning actually manifesting things in the material plane, but also the most transformative, for its essence is to achieve a stage where you can have full conversations with your HGA and later use its power to command a full hierarchy of demons. To be completely transparent, another system that has given me very intense results, just like the Abramelin, is the Enochian system of magic. But during this phase of my journey, I still didn't know much about it. Although the Abramelin is the most essential and widely known operation for this purpose of contacting your HGA, it is also true that this concept of the HGA, as we learned from Agrippa, which I have a video about, reverberates from much earlier traditions, having been common amongst ancient Greek esoteric thought, with many people being described as having conversations with their holy daimon, or the sacred spirit appointed by God to guide and protect them. So it stands to reason that we may have had other practices aimed at this exact purpose in the ancient Greek schools of philosophy, especially the initiatory ones, such as the Eleusinian mysteries. As it later became important in the Golden Dawn-inspired traditions, most specifically Thelemic thought, many magicians successfully achieved contact with their HGA through different methods. Thelemites will recommend Liber Samec, a process of daily ritual with the Bornless One, which is an invocation Crowley adapted from the Greek magical papyri under his own particular twist. This is a method where you're just meant to do it every day as an evocation of your HGA, each time creating an opportunity for him to manifest, until it eventually does. Many magicians contacted their HGA under this method. In the more traditional Golden Dawn, the main source was the Abramelin, translated by Matters, in very fancy and complicated English, and with a fairly rigid structure. Many magicians contacted their HGA through this method. Nowadays we have a much better scholar work translating the Abramelin. As usual with the grimoiric tradition, we find different copies of the same grimoire, as masters would probably have their students copy the book for study or reference. The Dan Goog version of the Abramelin cross-references different sources and focuses on a German version which is much more readable and reliable. This extends the Matters method from 6 months to 18, but it also comes with less rigidity, where some of the parts of the ritual are recommended but not strictly necessary, and having some periods where you can even have sex and eat meat, while still having a few periods where you cannot do that. Personally, I've never read Matters' translation, at least not fully, just a few parts, so I can't compare, and my practice is most inspired by the Dengu version. Although I'm not sure of his argument after the translation itself of who might have been the originator of this grimoire, as a particular rabbi. But this changes nothing towards the practice we're gonna do. So, if you want a video about the Book of Abramelin, its teachings, particularities, let me know. This video is not so much about that, because, as stated in the thumbnail, my journey is a bit unorthodox. It's good to remember that this longer version also has had many magicians successfully achieve knowledge and conversation of their Holy Guardian Angel. Most likely there are several secret societies with their own processes and methods for achieving the same thing. The Gallery of Magic has a book called Magical Destiny, with simple methods to begin doing and aiming at reaching out and, giving the HGA opportunities to manifest and be perceived by us, for he is always with us and doing its best to protect and illuminate us, bringing us closer to the divine. The book also lacks sources, which makes it lose many points. It's hard to recommend Gallery of Magic books, but it still has valid insight over the HDA relationship and how to achieve it. And of course, very easy and practical methods to walking towards it. Although I'm giving this long introduction, all of that only became a part of my HGA journey later. It actually began with me questioning what even was the HGA. But before we go on, I'd like to announce a few things. First of all, I'm launching a Patreon. I sincerely dream of being able to sustain myself with my magical practice, and of course also helping others live the bliss that spirituality can bring us. And of course, life improvements in all aspects of our lives. That's why I'll begin a monthly ritual for all Patreons. If you decide to become one, you'll be not only helping me, but I hope I can help all of you too. Each month, my guides and intuition will decide the purpose for the collective ritual, and every patron will have their name assigned to the ritual so they can receive the benefits. Slowly over time, I intend to go over all areas of our lives, and as soon as we have our first patron, we intend to begin. The first ritual will most likely be for spiritual, astral, mental, and physical protection. So if you want to help this channel out, go check our Patreon, and I hope we can have a beautiful magical journey together. There I will also be providing more personalized responses and guidance. But if you don't want to help in this financial matter, you can always like the video, share with people that are interested in this sort of stuff, and leave a helpful comment. All of that also helps me a lot, so thank you. Also, if you want to schedule a particular ritual, I'm open for those too. I also do oracle consultations, so whatever your magical needs are, feel free to contact me. Now to the actual story. As I said, I began questioning what the HGA even was. People used to talk about it in grandiose ways, most of the time at least. The ritual is extenuating and long, but at the same time people described it as our higher self, which at the time I felt I already received many intuitions and ideas from, so I already thought that I was guided by it, and I already received influences from my higher self. I was also already getting great results with Goetia and the Arbatel, both of which I have videos sharing my stories. So for a while it didn't make sense to me to do rituals for contacting my HGA. My idea of the higher self was more akin to Atman, which in Advaita Vedanta is one with Brahman, the absolute source of everything, which is absolute stillness and bliss, still unmanifest, similar to Ayin for the Kabbalists. We can access its influence, but it's not an acting spirit in our lives, because for being an acting spirit, it needs to have form, and form limits, while the infinite cannot be limited. So it's almost a passive principle. At least that's what I thought until I began receiving understandings during a certain meditation that it can actually be both. Yes, the Atman is that part of ourselves that is one with the all, which is ineffable. But in the same way that it manifests as an entire universe, ourselves, spirits, elementals, and much more, it too can emanate as a divine guide to each human. This understanding was heavily inspired by Kashmir Shaivism and their arguments for unifying both the absolute unmanifest, free of form, that is of course ineffable, with its manifest aspect, when it's expressing its power, which is his feminine attribute, very similar to the idea of the Shekinah as the power of God manifested in the world. Although ultimately they're both one, because the divine is both transcendent and immanent, meaning existing as a potential within every part of the manifest universe. Kashmir Shaivism is also a tradition where the absolute, non-dual, is the highest experience one can have, and that is of course free of form and identified with the absolute God. while at the same time there's a whole array of divine forms in which the formless manifests and can help us evolve until we're one with the Absolute. So we have the unlimitable God, which in Kashmir Shaivism is called Shiva, or in Advaita Vedanta called Brahman. And that concept within Kashmir Shaivism fits perfectly, it's in perfect harmony with all expressions of the multiple divine forms, the Ishtadevas, the personal God that each person is supposed to find and have their personal worship relationship. And this philosophical integration from the Hindu traditions was what allowed me to see how the HGA could be both, as I was saying. So for the first time, I saw how my higher self could be that concept that I already had and still manifest further as an HGA for me. And of course, for each of us, we're all equally divine. Nobody's above any other. But at the time, I only knew of the Liber Samek, which didn't call much to me since I'm not a Thelemite, and the Abramelin, which was excruciating and I didn't feel ready for. But I had already built the magical and philosophical framework of how this was gonna fit in my life, and I began really wanting to have full knowledge and conversation of my HGA. As you might know from the Arbatel episode, I was too experimenting with Kabbalistic archangels. I skipped some of those stories because the time came to share about my relationship with the HGA, but I was working with Haziel in all my divinatory work, which I still do, and had experimented with almost all Kabbalistic archangels. In the future, I intend to make a video of those experiences too, so let me know if you would like that. In the book written by Damien Eccles, Angels and Archangels, he shares the abilities of Metatron, the Kabbalistic archangel of Keter, and it's all about theurgy, getting closer to the divine and contacting the HGA. Wait, Metatron can be evoked to help us contact the HGA? Nice, okay, let's try that. So I did the ritual I was already doing and still do to contact the archangels of the Sephiroth, and I evoked Metatron. He showed up in a throne with pope-like clothes and a pope-like hat. He looked from high up very much as a king, and he had a very calm look on his face. I presented myself, told him what was it that I was seeking. He questioned me a bit about my goals and spiritual views, but eventually agreed to what I asked and said he would help me. I asked for instructions, and he told me that that's more of a Raziel thing, but that he will give me the necessary intuitions at the right times to make the connection happen. The next day, I already began receiving these intense intuitions, along with the knowing that it was coming from my HGA. So I began feeling this connection, and over the next few weeks, I kept receiving those intuitions and understandings and philosophies that I just knew were coming from my HGA. And so I was able to begin recognizing its energy, and at that point I was already very much thankful to Metatron. This began rather quickly after the ritual. This kept happening, and I was still doing other magic and studying, until eventually I've heard of the book Magical Destiny, which I mentioned before. As soon as I heard of it, I heard a ringing in my right ear, a very particular pitch, and I had this knowing that I had to read it. The Gallery of Magic is terrible at sources, and their work could be much, much better, but they are good at shaping our expectations to properly perform magic, avoiding the common traps and providing simple and easy practices. But any serious magician truly needs to keep studying, even after beginning a practice from those books. One of the things the book teaches is that you don't need a timeline. You can just simply every day do small processes for reaching out to your HGA. You won't know how long it will take. It may take months, years, or decades. So it still requires the mental discipline of sticking to something that you don't even know how long will take to achieve your goals. But that was easy for me. I wanted it bad, and I was willing to work for it. Plus, I trusted Metatron, that was guiding me throughout this whole ordeal. I did so every day for about 2 months, getting smaller messages and teachings throughout. So that was maybe already close to a month after the original ritual with Metatron. During that time, I would practice both the book methods and my own. So next I called Sandalphon, which is the Archangel of Malkut, for helping achieve this contact that Metatron was already working on. I also contacted Michael of Hode for strengthening my mental capabilities, making my mind and brain more prone to receiving and retaining information coming from the HGA. So I truly tackled this from a myriad of ways. And eventually, in one of those days, I began seeing my HGA in my mind's eye. I was able to perceive a shape that he chose to show itself to me. He gave me a name and he gave me a sigil. I have been working so hard for this that the experience was extremely ecstatic. I felt deep sensations of love, oneness, and integration, akin to things that I had only experienced with psychedelics. My experience of contact with the HGA led to the following entry in my personal grimoire. After the ritual with Metatron, towards the contact with my HGA, I've just had my first small talk with him. While I was reading Magical Destiny and practicing the first protocol for a few weeks already, now, after doing it, I felt a big heat in my hand, specifically my hand, nowhere else. Since the goal of the protocols is to give those opportunities of contact, I asked myself if this could be the angel. So I spoke with him to see if he was there, and I was answered. It was an emotional moment. I, for the first time, heard his voice, although inside my head, as it usually is for me. So I basked in the moment, in the beauty of it, and holding his hand. Even though I didn't see anything, I was just feeling the heat and had gotten an answer. After I don't know how many minutes of just enjoying the feeling and looking at my hand, I felt almost like a physical touch. Not quite a physical touch, but some movements gave strange sensations, and I don't know how else to describe it. I just know that at that moment I saw in my mind's eye his hand wearing white or silver armor and with golden details in the borders of each piece of its hand. So far I was only seeing his hand, but slowly I began seeing his arms, and it was like the image of him was forming in my mind, and I could perceive him, which led him to giving me his name, which is probably one of the most powerful things that he has given me, and that I use it as a divine name in my rituals as well. And as a tip for anyone out there, if you do get to this point and you do achieve contact with your HGA, maybe he won't give you a name at the start. Everybody's different. You don't have to worry that the experience actually won't be what you expect. So don't overthink it. Don't think there are certain rules that the experience has to follow, because it doesn't. But whenever you do get a name, I think you should probably use it amongst other divine names. That's of course if you're a ceremonial magician, but I guess anyone so interested in the HGA and ceremonial methods for it is a little bit, or at least flirts with it. The next entry in my grimoire, I just go on to talk about other things and minor stuff I was figuring out, and I use the opportunity to talk with him, but are not so interesting for this video. But that was just the beginning. Of course, that very first day we had a long talk about a bunch of things that I wanted to ask him, and a bunch of other things that just arose from the conversation. And ever since has been a very crucial factor in all my spiritual decisions. He protects and guides me within all ceremonial magic. He gives suggestions that I have followed. He has given me over and over impressive experiences. One time I was at a new place and I wanted to do the LBRP in the astral, but I didn't know east from where I was, but he was guiding me and he told me a direction. I didn't believe it and checked the compass app on my phone. It confirmed what he said. I already felt like a lucky person, but it also grew after the ritual. The frequency and intensity of the understandings I was receiving about spirituality would only grow, and I would receive many ideas about certain traditions that I would later confirm in the original sources. He also instructed me on doing a few things I've never been much fond of, but were necessary for my health and well-being. Also proposing a bit more discipline in my habitual days. He has never forced me to do anything and has stated that I can always decide for myself, and he won't be offended if I choose not to follow his suggestions, which is always an important perspective to have while working with any spirits. But so far, everything he has suggested was indeed towards the best for me, even the unpleasant things, and sometimes some strange things that I may not understand, but I can see that are harmless. Maybe just a bit weird, and later I find out how it was helpful. It's hard to tell stories of the HGA because it's more of a journey. After achieving contact, the relationship is just beginning, and it's an ongoing relationship that grows over time, hand in hand with the trust you have for it, which also grows. It's a lifetime system of magic that is quite special. I must say I am a fan and I really think any magician will benefit from reaching out and establishing a practice aimed at achieving knowledge and conversation with your holy guardian angel, as is called in the Thelemic context. Another thing I began having is not only further memories of very early childhood, but also I was reminded of multiple times where I received his influence way before I knew what he was or that it even existed. And didn't matter how I would call it, but I could see that it has been a very important figure throughout my entire life. It's truly a profound connection. So the HGA was incredible. Eventually, he told me to adapt the last part of the Abramelin. Most of it is aimed at achieving contact with the HGA, but the last few days are for evoking the Abramelin Hierarchy of demons and forbidding them to serve you, never attack, never lie, or anything of the kind. You're to do that with and by the authority of your holy guardian angel, which constrains them and guarantees your safety. In the middle of everything I'm telling you in this video, I'm also leaving out a bunch of stuff, a bunch of other stories and other magical works that I did, because the focus of this video is my personal journey towards contacting the HGA. But as I said, I was also working with the Kabbalistic archangels that period, and even had a surprise appearance of Lucifer, which not only scared me, but also helped me grow a lot. So this, once again, will be material for a future video. So tell me, which do you want to see more? Archangel stories or Lucifer stories? By the way, I was checking my personal notes, my personal grimoire to, make sure I was telling the stories correctly, and I've realized that this contact with Lucifer came a few days after my work with Metatron towards the HGA, and only later I found out that Lucifer is one of the kings in the Abramelin Hierarchy. So maybe those things are connected, but I'm not sure. At the time, I didn't think that they were. Now, for the clear changes I've seen from contacting my HGA. First of all, the level of safety within our magic skyrockets. Of course, there's the work of maintaining that connection, but since he's quickly became a part of my every ritual, it's like I have an expression of God by my side. If you see my older Goetia stories, you'll see that I have been attacked by demons during my work. Other times that I haven't shared here on YouTube, I had demons lying to me and tricking me. After having the HGA, this has never happened again. Our spiritual authority grows incredibly, and we gain direct insight into suggestions of behaviors and things to do to align ourselves with the divine will. My magic began feeling more powerful and more effective, and that was happening even before I did the Abramelin part of controlling the hierarchies. So I fully understand any magical traditions that emphasize connecting with your HGA, even those that say that this should be your first magical goal before any evocation work. It is a long and arduous process, but indeed a much safer path into ceremonial magic. Plus, with the Abramelin Hierarchy, you get one of the most intense and quick-acting systems of manifestation that I have ever experimented with. But this video is already growing long enough, so I think I'll leave the last part of the story for a separate video, because it's the part where I tap into the Abramelin tradition, and it was one of the most intense experiences I've ever had, at least so far. It's pretty much the same level of intensity I have found with Enochian magic, which right now is my main practice, but at the time of the story was nothing but a recommendation of Haziel to eventually learn it. And also because the last part of the Abramelin is the risky part, where you face an amazingly powerful hierarchy of demons, and the whole theme of the story is way darker and scarier, and forces us to confront a bunch of our shadows. So it's overall a much darker path than contacting your HGA needs to be. Even Aleister Crowley so famously wasn't able to finish the ritual, became disturbed for a while, and the infamous Belaskin house, where he performed the ritual and failed, is still believed to be haunted by many people. The point of this video is more that we can easily achieve contact with our HGA and choose never to work with the demons of the Abramelin and their magic squares. And being honest, if you have the HGA, there are some magic squares within the book that were given by Holy Guardian Angels, and the book distinguishes between which were given by demons and which were given by the HGA, so you could even tap a little bit into the Abramelin tradition in a less intense way without having to deal with the demonic hierarchy, if you feel that that best fits your path. And I'm sure that the HGA by itself is transformative enough. It's amazing, it's an incredibly intense system, and of course it only grows even more intense when you do the demonic part too, which is also the most scary part. So I hope you enjoyed this story, and part 2 should come out soon, maybe 1-2 weeks tops, and that will be when I will share the actual, I think it was a 6-day ritual for binding all of the demonic spirits from the Abramelin, and a whole bunch of UPG that I received from that working. Unfortunately, there are things that I learned in that ritual that I cannot share, and my HGA has forbidden me to say to anyone. But I will do my best to share everything that I can, especially the things that can help you in your journey. So thank you very much for watching so far, and I wish you all the love, all the bliss. Don't forget to leave a like, don't forget to leave a comment, don't forget to share this video with people you like and that will enjoy this video. And of course, if you want to help, come to the Patreon, the link will be in the description, and I'm very thankful to all of you. Goodbye.